Hello, welcome to the final part of the Barn Find Suzuki MT50 build. This episode is obviously back to back with the previous one. We're just doing mechanicals this time, and when I say just doing mechanicals, I mean every single thing mechanical. Because as of right now, it's just assembled, but nothing is really functioning. The biggest thing is going to be mounting the engine, like getting it hard mounted into the frame. Because as of right now, it's just kind of dangling there. It looks, like it's mounted, but it's not. It's just kind of chilling. I still had this grip. Luckily, it's like an original one. It even has the Suzuki logo on it, so we're reusing it. And I just need to get the new old stock brake cable kind of in place. Pretty standard stuff. A lot of these parts are being mixed and matched from an LT50 and JR50 and then some original. So what I did is I bought a JR50 throttle assembly because it came with a carb, but it just saves some money, buying just one unit versus each part individually. And then I just put when you look up like mini bike grip, it happens to be the style that's really, really close to the original. So I just threw that grip onto this assembly. So that all kind of ties together. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the throttle assembly hooked up. That way I can attach the NOS rear brake cable. At some point I need to drop the bowl on this carb and just check it out and clean it if needed. It looks pretty good. I don't see any clogged ports except the one I just now noticed. So that's great. Other than that, it looks pretty good. It's just a VM12, I think, or VM13. I don't know what the nomenclature is, but everything works as it should. So happy, yeah, okay. And then that through there. I don't know how it routes, but we'll figure it out in a second. The only weird thing is this thing had it was like a splitter where it would use the input from the brake to like engage the clutch. I think it was like a kid safety thing or something, but I remember removing that bracket. It was basically a Y bracket where one input in became two out. But in any case, we're not going to use that, but I can't remove it. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably just going to get a piece of rubber hose and put it over this and make a sleeve out of it to protect this. So I'll figure that out, route these how I need to. And I noticed a little while ago that these bearings are pretty crunchy. That one barely even turns. On this side, yeah, same thing. They're crunchy and chunky and whatever. They're just awful. They did have numbers on them, and I was able to find new ones actually really cheaply too. I think these were like $3 a piece or something like that. So we'll get those punched out real quick, get these new ones in, and repeat the process for the front. Here we go. Nope. Moved, but still not out. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this one doesn't even turn. And it's only a single seal, so these probably should have been getting greased this whole time, and that's probably why they failed. But the new ones are fully sealed. So that's a little bit of an upgrade there. Easy enough. Let's see how that one is. Oh, there's the crunchy one. I forgot to mention the old part number was 6201RS, and the new part number that I found here is 62012RS. So identical. I forget the measurement. I think it's like 13 by 23 by 16 millimeter. But in any case, they will work exactly in place of the old ones. Okay, so the front brake cable's in, and just so you know what I'm using, brake cable is MT50, the brake drum and obviously all this stuff's MT50, and then I'm using JR50 stuff to mount it. So that includes the little nut, the little barrel, and then the bellow with the spring in it, all of which are separate parts. I will try to link these in the description just so you know they do all work together, which is awesome. And the MT50 already has a spring on the brake arm itself. I'm gonna run a secondary one just because more modern ones just have a spring on the cable itself, and that works. But since I don't trust the spring on the arm, we're gonna run a secondary spring in the bellow itself, just as a secondary precaution. It's not super necessary, but I don't wanna find out I don't have brakes at any point in time. And then that goes on there. Okay, actually, yep, perfect. That feels really good, actually. I think the double springs what's making that difference. Yeah, they sound terrible and they need adjustment, but they work. So good enough for me. Same story back here. Not through there, not through there. I might have to make some more adjustments. On the quick agenda, this case side cover leaks. I don't know if there's just no gasket there or the gasket's bad or whatever, but we'll go ahead and pop that cover off. Someone has already bypassed the oil injection system, but I don't know how thoroughly they did it, if they just capped it or if they actually removed the guts. So if there are remaining parts of it left in there, I'll do that too. But it should be pretty easy. I mean, it's just 10 little JS screws around the perimeter, and this one's very mismatched. So we'll replace that one so at least it matches. Like I mentioned in the last episode, I just bought this engine off some guy, so I have no history on it. And as such, I'd like to at least just look in it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna replace all this hardware yet. I prefer not to because we're already at our budget. Like I've already bought everything I can with the budget I've allocated for this build. So I can't go buying, you know, $15 more of stainless hardware just to make it look slightly better. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. I'll see if I just have this kind of hardware sitting around and just replace the more beat up stuff. But in any case, oh, easy, okay. Well, there is a seal, but there's not much of it left, and there's a glob of garbage. There's some garbage down by the drain plug. But again, not bad. So I'll get this cleaned out real quick, get what's left of the gasket removed, and then we have a new OEM one to put in its place. So we'll get all this cleaned out, get a new gasket on it, and reseal it. So it should be pretty straightforward. Okay, everything's pretty well cleaned up. Got the new gasket for it. This is just an OEM one, so the part number will be in the description. Gonna go ahead. We ended up replacing the hardware. Let's get that dowel pin in there so it kind of lines up. I ended up replacing the hardware with some 8mm head stuff. I just went through my bin of hardware and I had stuff that all matched, so I figured I would just throw it in there. I don't know what to expect for these, so I'm just gonna go by feel and make sure they're all even. We're gonna throw this a third of a quart in and see if it leaks. Get this, I forgot to change the oil. So that's what we're gonna use. Oh wait, hold on. You can't see it. Okay, that stuff. So 1040, wet clutch specific motorcycle stuff. It's probably overkill, but it's what we're gonna stick with because it's what I have. This carb looks pretty good, but I'm just gonna open up anyway just to check it out and also replace the bowl gasket, and that's the part number for that. I'm hoping this isn't nearly as bad as some of the other ones I've opened up before because I really don't feel like doing a full rebuild, but we're about to find out. Not terrible, and I didn't rip the gasket, but the gasket itself looks pretty beat. There you go. So like not super bad. There's definitely grunge and crap in here and the gasket's toast, but we'll get it cleaned out, get the new gasket on it, and hope everything works. Not a lot. Hey, not bad. Okay. It cleaned up pretty well. There's a couple jets clogged in the main and idle circuits. The needle and the seat were stuck and just overall kind of gummy, but not super bad. Put that guy on there. Okay. For the plug, we went with an NGK BPR 4HS. So that should all be good. It didn't leak oil overnight, which is great. Plug is in. I looked in the cylinder, it looked okay. Just, you know, standard 2-stroke things. So nothing concerning there. Made a little bit of progress just trying to like kind of get things mocked up in place. So obviously the engine has 3 mounting bolts from factory, as did the original engine. So obviously only 1 mounting bolt will line up at a time. So I chose to use the lowest one here. That way I can get the chain and everything where it needs to be, which is there-ish. So the upper 2 mounting holes obviously don't line up right now, so I'm going to have to make adapters to connect them together, but in the meantime I can at least get the chain the right length that it needs to be. We're using just cheapy primary drive chain. This little dowel here is in the way, so I'm going to have to trim that off. I don't know what it was for originally, but we're just going to shorten it up a little bit because right now the chain's going to drag on that. If I do that right, I can put the master there. Okay, we can do this. Well, the chain's figured out. Now we got to do the wiring, which should be really easy because it's just one wire. So you have a black and yellow wire coming off the stator, and then it splits, and then it's just one spade and one bullet connector. So I'm guessing the spade goes to the coil and the bullet connector goes to the kill switch as a way to interrupt the signal. The LT had, I think, both a tether kill switch, like the kind that you attach to yourself, and when you fall off, it kills it, and then it has like a regular toggle one. We're only going to do the toggle one. There was a secondary little connector that like split it 2 more times, so that way you could run that, but we're not using that system, so this is all we're going to use. The coil is a CDI all as one unit. When I got this engine, I got a coil and CDI for it, and they were like more of a traditional one. It took me a embarrassingly long time to realize that was not originally for this engine. Once I figured that out, it was really easy. The issue is that a factory one of these was like $140 and a cheap clone one was like $23. So that's what we went with, and we're gonna just bolted up there, and everything should work as it is. I mean, the system's really simple. If I bolt the coil where it was originally, there's like a whole foot of extra wire, which looks pretty stupid. Probably gonna trim that wiring back and then use a better boot, one that also just looks better, and put that on there. The wiring is all completed. It was really straightforward. So there's one wire from the stator to the coil, and that wire has a branch on it that then goes to the kill switch. And then the second wire from the kill switch comes back here and grounds right to the coil. So very simple circuit, and then just trimmed up the spark plug wire so it doesn't look all weird. So the engine is positioned where I need it for the most part. The carb, as it sits, should allow me to run a tube back here for an air filter, so that would be clear of the frame. I don't have to trim this or anything like that. This lower bolt here, this is just a factory MT50 bolting location for the engine, and all these, I cut a metal spacer so that the engine is positioned where I need it to be. Then back here and up here, we're utilizing both the factory MT50 locations and the LT50 locations. So for these two bolts here, there are 9mm ID metal tubing that I cut as a spacer to go between the mounting locations. And then I have 3 of these pre-made gussets that have pre-drilled holes in them, and then I modified them in a way that I could weld them onto said spacers. If all goes well, it all bolts in as it should, and there's no actual modifications to the frame. I'm gonna go ahead and tack these, then pull them off, weld them fully, and then we're gonna blue them the same way we did with a bunch of the other hardware. Refer back to the video before this where I showed how to do the cold bluing process, but we're gonna do that for all the bare metal components that I just made for mounting this engine. Engine's back in, front mount, lower mount, and now rear mount are gonna go in. They turned out pretty well. I'm fairly happy with them considering they were just thrown together with scrap. Even though all these are in place but loose, like I can still move the engine quite a bit, so I'm gonna have to mock it up exactly where I want it and then tighten them all down. That way, 1, all the bolts share the load, and 2, there's none of this happening once the chain gets tightened. So, something going on there, but that's a future me problem. So for now, we'll just tighten up these guys and call it good. I think what I'm probably just gonna do is cut this tab off and maybe re-weld it down here, or put a new tab down here so that way I can bolt something to this, because I don't want this just jiggling like that. I've got tubing that's the same diameter as that, and I'm thinking maybe just cut a little section of the turn, that way I can just angle it away from the shock. I wanted to get a JR50 exhaust because that has an expansion chamber in it, so it's wider right here where it wouldn't matter, and then narrows out, and then there's a little silencer at the end which you don't have to run. The exhaust is modified. It's not done, but it's getting close. So we bent this little ear out of the way. There is another ear with a capture nut on it right back here, and I'm going to use that to mount the muffler. So what I did was I had some of these pre-made tabs, and I just cleaned the paint off on that side, and I'm just going to weld it, just onto the case of the muffler. So that way there's a secondary mount back here, not just relying on the bolts in the front. And I'm going to do something like, maybe like that, just to direct it away from the shock. I'm just trying to get it, out and away from anything that matters. Okay, so exhaust is on. I'm actually really happy with the fitment. Of course. Well, fish that back out and try again. Okay, I'm getting cold now, but this is try number 3. Let's see if it's 3 for 3 for breaking immediately. It's definitely doing something because it smells of exhaust, but I'm thinking maybe since I had oil in this cylinder long ago when I had it in storage, what I'm thinking is maybe there's just too much in it. Yeah, there's a lot of oil in there. Compression test time. This is gonna be fun. Like 40 PSI. So, Let's see what it's supposed to be. Probably not that low. People are saying 90 is good. So we have to do rings, probably. Despite mine being cold and give it the benefit of the doubt and say it's 50, it's still too low. So what we're gonna do is get the compression tester stuck in the head first. Okay, great. Can you get out of there, please? You butthole server. There you go, all you gotta do is talk mean to it and then it cooperates. Back on, it actually doesn't even matter. Let's just see if we've got compression in the crankcase. Okay, I don't feel compression in the transmission, which is good. So I'm gonna take that as just bad rings. I have a new kit on the way already. It's one of those cheap clone ones, but it should do the job. I ordered a JR one, the only difference being the LT jug has a barb fitting here for vacuum for a pulse pump, which we don't need. So I ordered a JR one, which shouldn't have that fitting there, but everything else is the same. And for now, we're just gonna pull this off, assess the damage, and find out if I need to order any other parts. Okay. That, I mean, very oily, but I did put both a lot of gas and a lot of oil in the cylinder originally, but that's really not bad at all. I don't know how that's, I feel like someone's been in here because that's too clean. The cylinder, however, is not as clean. Can't see all that well. The cylinder looks, I mean, the walls look okay. There's a little dirt in here, but really not that bad. You can definitely see where the piston's been sitting though. Okay, is there even a head gasket? There's no head gasket, like at all. So someone's definitely been in here, and that's not great. Thinking maybe just the fact that there's no head gasket was part of the compression leak, and maybe we get off easy with just doing rings and new gaskets, which would be awesome. Get off. Why are you like this? Oh, okay, easy enough. There's way too much oil in there. I put too much in the crankcase. There's a 0.05 stamped on the top of the piston, so either that's 5 over or just a random machining number. So originally I was gonna just use the stock jug and head since they are Suzuki brand, like actual quality stuff. But the jug is already 0.5 over and it was damaged enough that I couldn't just dingle ball hone it. I was hoping to just get it quickly honed and then do a quality piston and rings and then, you know, wrist pin and bearing and all that stuff. But for the price of that stuff, I could buy a whole top end kit from China for less. So that's the direction we went. I bought the Chinese kit. I did do a dingle ball hone already, but you can see the grooves there are just like a lot of it cleaned up actually pretty nicely, but obviously down here it's pretty bad. And same with the piston, like the piston's just covered in scoring. In any case, the pins that normally lock these rings into place are just wore out. They're still kind of there, but they don't do what they need to be doing anymore. And again, since this is all 0.5 over, the only real option would be to send this out and have it bored up to the next size. Again, why when I can buy a whole top end kit for 40 bucks? All I've done since last filming was I removed the studs, I cleaned out the rotating assembly, there's a bunch of crap in there, and got everything ready to accept the new parts. So while everything seems to be moving as it should, and it doesn't sound bad, I'm just gonna slap it together with the cheap junk gaskets it came with, check compression, because if we have like 80, 90, 100 PSI or whatever, okay, we're good. We'll slap it back together and just see how long it lasts. Suzuki, in all their wisdom, decided that it'd be a good idea to put a seal on the inside of the rotating assembly. So normally it's clutch, seal, bearing. Nope, the seal and bearing are flipped on this, so that means you have to split the case to replace this side seal. I just want to see if this thing will run with just a top end kit. That's the main goal here. Then we'll decide on splitting the case or not. That one is fully in. Get the circle up on the other side. Is that in right? Yes, okay. I'm normally not an advocate for using anything hardware-wise from China, that specifically meaning bolts and studs and stuff like that, because they are not what they say they are. Meaning, if they say grade 8, they're definitely not. If you watch the PW video on the same process, I torqued them to spec and bent 2 of the studs. So they're obviously not meant to handle the spec that they say they will. Okay, it's all back together. New garbage gasket is in place. The most common number I found for these torque spec was 6.5 foot-pound or 78 inch-pound. So that's what we're gonna go with. There's a lot of debate, people online arguing as to what the right one is, but I don't think it matters all that much as long as it's close and consistent across all four. So that's what we're gonna go with. I can tell you that already sounds better than it previously did. So that's like 91 PSI. And the compression tool is stuck in the cylinder again. Can you not do that, please? Hey! Okay, didn't sound great, but it be doing a thing. Yeah, that's warm enough to do a compression test now. So I'll do that real quick and see what it comes up with. I'm not really sure what to expect. If we see catastrophically lower, like 40, then we 100% have bad seals. So. Okay, so we stayed at 90 just to confirm, but that's actually promising. Okay, it runs. Not well, but that's fine. And what I was thinking was this little metal retainer was previously what mounted the plastic housing to the carb. And what I'm thinking is if I can take a section of 3/4 inch tubing and weld that on there and just extend it back here and then make a little air box with an air filter, you know, back here somewhere. I started mocking this up where that's gonna sit approximately there-ish. And then I'm gonna put this housing around it. So I don't know, I'm still working on it. I just started cutting this stuff up to like get an idea of what I wanted to do. I think I'm gonna do one more pie cut on this piece to get it up higher. And then I'll, you know, weld them all in, obviously. Keep modifying this shield to accommodate. And then I just got a little breather filter from Vibrant, I think, that fits on there. So that's gonna be the air filter assembly. I just didn't want it hanging out looking like that. I figured that looked kind of stupid if I just leave that in the open. So kind of just gonna hide it a little bit. Well, it's done. It's not super pretty. One, got to make an intake gasket here. Two, got to blue the intake and also re-blue the engine mount because I ground part of it to clear the intake itself. Yeah, you get the idea. It'll look pretty good when it's done, I think. I think it's a pretty good place to wrap up. So obviously I got the intake installed, get the little chrome louver thing installed. It's pretty much done. I think I can finally check it off of the to-do list. Like there's no more parts left to put on it. It runs, not well, but it does. And it was like right on budget. So I really can't complain whatsoever. I mean, I can and I will, here we go. Carb definitely needs work still. Doesn't run worth a shit, but that could have been because there was a vacuum leak, either in the intake manifold where the carb meets the intake manifold, and then ride it. I haven't even ridden it at this point. It's just been, you know, sitting here leaking on the floor. I can now add it to the other bikes in the back that, you know, never get ridden. If you care about the budget, it was $826, I think, to build it as it is, and that included purchase. So I'm pretty happy with that, considering when I found ones for sale, the really roached out ones that are just parts bikes like this was, are like sub $600. Nice running original examples are like $1,500 and up, and then like restored ones are above that. Again, $800-ish to build a fully done mini bike. Like I think that's pretty good. Like the odometer works, the brakes work, everything looks at home. It looks original, even though it's not even close to original. I think at this point, the only upgrades I would do that would dedicate its own episode would be getting a JR engine and exhaust, that being more modern, an exhaust that has expansion chamber in it, and an engine that has selectable neutral and 2 forward gears, a kickstart, just more refined, a little bit more modern, cooler, and better fitting for this bike. Because the pull start right now is kind of not great. I'm not super happy with that. That's the biggest detractor, is the pull start. But if I left any parts out of the description, just let me know. I think I covered everything, and I think I also showed them in the video. So if I missed anything, just let me know. But yeah, other than that, thanks for watching and stay tuned. Fucking focus, please. There you go. Oh, now you're out of focus again. Why is the camera freaking out over there? It's just will not stop focusing on the Bonanza wheel. Well, it can't autofocus, so I guess it doesn't matter. Okay, again with that. Damn, you hear my knees? That sounded awful. Like Rice Krispies. I'm just gonna do something along those lines. Oh, you can't see it because it's out of frame. Attempt number 2. I think that's supposed to be up. We'll see. Okay, on off. Motherfucker. I hate this pull start. Let's go find a different one. You gonna turn off flashlight? Or you're just gonna get dimmer? You're just gonna get dimmer. Okay, great. Okay, I guess we're gonna stop here because my light has pieced out. That's great. Everything is as it should be. I'm gonna go ahead and block the camera to put the circlip in. I'll cut this out because I'm gonna ruin the footage. My fat fucking head. Yep, just drop onto my camo floor. I will just a little bit, and then we can just tap the, not that one, this one in.